We'll now look at including and requiring files in PHP. So we're going to look at 4 different methods of including and requiring files, or a mixture of these two statements, if you like. The first thing we're going to look at is including, then we're going to look at requiring and what the difference is, and then we're going to look at include once and require once as well. So what do we actually mean by including a file? Well, let's say that we have a functions.php file which holds a few useful functions that we might want to use throughout our application. Well, you're hardly going to want to go ahead and redeclare them on each page that you build. So what we do is we have a separate file called functions which can be included on any page that we require them, and then we don't have to just keep redeclaring them. So to use an include, you specify include, and then inside of a string you point to the location of the include. So this can either be a relative or an absolute path, but I'm going to say functions.php. So what I can now do is I can actually call this function here. So I could say something like echo add 5 and 6. So you'll see here that we have 11. So we now have included the functions file, and we can actually make use of the functions. Now we also have a way of including files called require. Now if I, for example, mistype this, or the file wasn't available and I include it, let's take a look at what happens. So let's refresh. You see we've got a warning here and a warning here as well. Now let's just remove the fact that we're actually making use of the function, because that's generated a fatal error since that add function can't be found. So we have 2 warnings here. So what's happening is anything after this is being run. So I'm just going to say index.php. So anything after this is being run despite the fact that we can't actually include this functions file. Now what happens if we absolutely need to kill our application or kill our page if we can't include that file? Well, we go ahead and we use require. Now take a look at what the difference between the warning and the warning here is when we hit refresh. This warning will actually become a fatal error, and you see that the index.php string that we echoed out a moment ago is now gone because we failed to open this file. So that's the difference between include and require. But what about include once and require once? Well, there's a difference between these as well, or that they're the same thing, but there's a difference between include once and just include, for example. So let's go ahead and just require once functions.php, and we'll see what happens. We echo out the string index.php. We know that that's there. So let's just go ahead and get rid of that, and we'll go ahead and use add here. Okay, so we've got the expected result by using require once. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is that if I were to copy and paste this line, either by accident or something happened, and I refresh, nothing changes. It works in the same way. Now what has actually happened is, upon running this require once, PHP already knows that this functions file has been included or required, and therefore it doesn't include it again. Now if we were just using require rather than require once, you'll see that that changes slightly and we see a fatal error, and that's simply because of the contents of our functions file where we have redeclared the add function, but we're still messing up our page by doing this. So by using require once, we know that we'll only ever require one copy of this file into whatever page that we decide to include it in. So that's include, requires, and include once and require once in PHP, and how and why we use them.